Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Trapp. I'm here with some exciting guests today from Hurrdat Media. So welcome, Jill. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you.
Are we exciting?
We're
You are so exciting.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
It's bar set.
Yeah, right?
Tell me what you guys do here. This is your stomping ground.
We are the directors of the podcast division for Hurrdat.
For the whole podcast services network, taking care of bringing in branded podcasts or entertainment podcasts, helping people learn how to put a podcast together.
Anything podcast, we cover
anything.
it.
If you want to do it yourself, we'll help you get started. If you want somebody to help you do everything and you just bring it, we can do that too.
Awesome. Well, you just covered so much. I guess we don't need to have this episode.
Nope, we're
Are
done.
we done? Thanks, Megan. Thanks for coming in.
We'll break that down. Yeah. So if you want to start your own podcast, what does it take? And then if you don't want to start your own podcast, you want us to help you start your own podcast. How do we help?
Sure. Pat's got like a list. We put together kind of the necessities.
Like equipment list? Yeah. I
your
mean,
necessities if you want to do it yourself.
because you can. Anybody can. You can go to Best Buy, you can go to Nebraska Furniture Mart, wherever, and get the equipment that you need. Just need a microphone. You need headphones because you're going when you're talking to guests online, whether it's Zoom or wherever, you're going to have be able to hear them.
Yeah.
And then you can record right on your laptop. I mean, you can actually do it yourself. What the difficulty is that for business owners, their whole deal is running their business.
Yeah.
And the podcast is just a part of their marketing plan, but it can take up so much time that they need to focus on running their business. Mm-hmm. So it usually they end up quitting. You know, you end up quitting 3 or 4 weeks in because it's just a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. And for businesses in particular, anybody can start one. Like if you're just doing one out of your basement with your best friend, you aren't so concerned with appearances maybe or with the overall quality. But if you're doing one for your business, you want to make sure the editing is good and smooth. You want to make sure that your transitions are smooth. And if there's things that have to be fixed, you need to learn how to edit. You need to learn how to master the podcast before you release that episode. And that's where, when he was talking about the businesses, they get frustrated because that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
That's what we do. That's a full-time job. So if I had to
than
do
one.
this, right, and then I
Right.
had to also learn how to run a hardware store, I'd be mad because I'm
Right.
like, I don't have time to run a hardware store. I have to do my podcast. So that's where we can come in. But yeah, the regular person that just wants to do a fun one with their best friend.
You could totally do it. But yeah, if you're when you do a podcast for your business, you want to be perceived as the expert in your field, but yet you have a podcast that doesn't sound very good, it doesn't jive.
Right.
Yeah, then you don't sound like very expert level.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it shouldn't be, it's one of those things you don't realize it's bad until it's bad, or you don't realize how bad you need something until it's wrong. And a good podcast doesn't get in the way of the content. Whereas a podcast is produced poorly, you don't even hear the content because you're so focused on the things that are going wrong.
You might not even make it all the way through.
Right. Some are hard
Usually
to
don't.
listen to because you'll have background noise that they didn't realize was going on, or maybe the volume levels aren't right.
Well, and if you notice on some videos that you watch on YouTube, people are really forgiving if the lighting isn't perfect or the camera isn't perfect.
Yeah.
But once you have bad audio, people are out.
That's true.
They're out.
It is. And you notice like these headsets that we use, we discovered these, and it's really funny coming from radio. We've worked with sports stations and they always had the headsets. It looks like you're sitting, on the sidelines and calling the game. But we realized the real advantage to this over a tabletop set is the fact that people can't drift away from the microphone. And that's like a producer's worst nightmare.
Oh,
Because they want to come
totally.
over and just smack you on the top of the head.
Oh, I've done it a couple times. Like at the end of the session, we like the client is before we had these.
Yeah.
When they're like they start talking and the microphone's off here, I'd like one time just pop.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, I've moved your head 10 times. Let's just do this. But yeah, this saves so much time and it lets them concentrate on what they're presenting.
On what they're doing.
Yeah.
It gives them the table space also without having the microphone. Because some people like to touch and they grab the microphone or they move it and it makes sounds that they don't even perceive.
Yeah.
Right?
So everybody can do a podcast. They just not everybody knows how to do it correctly.
The little things.
It's the little things.
Yeah, cool.
It is.
Well, so like a business owner that wants to start a podcast, you guys kind of mentioned the equipment side, but how do they tackle the content side? Where do they start on like putting together a season or series?
We help them with all that.
We do. We've got everything from bankers and doctors and lawyers, an OSHA guy. We've got agriculture. We've got a little bit of everything. And really it comes down to what are the topics that you're wanting to cover? What's the overall theme? And maybe like the banking, maybe they're focusing one series that's going to be on student loans, or let's talk PPP. Let's talk, this last year in particular, and being able to put that information. It's like, okay, now let's break it down to 10 topics or 5 topics. And so then they've got a topic for each episode.
They have all the information in their head. It's
have it
just
all.
helping them organize it and just getting it out there. But these business owners that come in, their biggest fear is actually hosting.
Yeah.
It. You know, we've had people come in and say, well, I want to do a podcast, but we got to find a host. I can't host. It's like, well, it's your business. You're the expert. So they have all that knowledge in there. It's just helping them organize it in a way that makes sense.
And can I say, nobody's failed. Everyone that's come in and said, well, I can't host this. I'm too nervous. And they would be the first couple. We've even redone episodes, right? Because we weren't going to put anything out there that doesn't make somebody look good. And every one of them has evolved. And it's really kind of, it's like a mother hen thing, kind of like the parents thing. It's like you notice the growth and now the confidence. Coming in to do the podcast is not an issue.
Yeah.
They bring the content and there's just a whole nother level of confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was joking with you guys about podcast inception. It's podcast within a podcast. But I know personally, of course, starting our own podcast, of course, we have a team of marketers that was helping me plan our content and helping get our experts prepared to speak. But I feel like this is season 2 and now we got our nerves worked out and we're growing. So
right?
You seem like an old
probably
pro.
notice it too from day one. It's a whole new, I'm just learning how to get comfortable with the headphones.
Yeah.
That for some
hearing
people,
your own voice is a big one.
It made me so nervous to listen to our episode.
Because we all sound,
kind of
everybody, we're used to it. But like if people hear their voice, they're like, I sound like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's awful.
That's the thing is, I think when anybody used to come on the radio shows with us, and in particular, when they put on the headphones, when you're talking, you're hearing your voice from the inside out. And so when you put on the headphones, you're hearing it from the outside in. That's how everybody else hears you.
That's scary.
Right?
right. I know.
You think you've got this sultry, dulcet tones, just laying it out. And then you hear it in this, and you're like,
oh my God. That's annoying.
I'm nervous. You guys have years of expertise.
But it's also getting comfortable. You don't have to have a professional voice.
True.
The whole thing is your content will carry you. And there are people, the uniqueness of your voice is what's important.
Actually, since we've transitioned over from radio to podcasting, if somebody is on and say it's a whatever random business owner and they're too polished and it's too radio sounding too slick, it almost is like, well, that doesn't seem right. It's because it's all about not honesty, it's not authenticity.
Yeah.
It's all about authenticity. So if you screw up, if you don't have the best voice, you get lost in your notes. That's what everybody does. So people can relate to that. Yeah. That's why people really connect with podcast hosts and podcasts.
I like to say too is, when you're hiring somebody to deliver your message and the way of traditional media is you hire a spokesperson. And they're polished, they're rehearsed, they don't make mistakes. They sound absolutely wonderful in their tone and they put, it's the whole 9 yards. But the thing is people aren't tuning into your podcast to hear a professional voice. They're tuning in to hear the professional. They want to hear you talking about it because nobody is going to sound as passionate about their topic or as intelligent as you, because that's your product.
Yeah, what I really like about listening to a lot of podcasts that are like that, like more informational, or is that it feels like the curtain is lifted, like, oh, I'm a fly on the wall in their conversation. Like I'm just listening in. It's not, I don't know if the right word is overproduced. It's not
scripted.
It's not scripted. Yeah,
overproduced is a good. Yeah,
it is a good word.
That's what. And being in morning radio for so long, that was what we were taught. Our whole career was to make your show sound like someone that's listening is that they're listening to from another table in a restaurant, just kind of eavesdropping. And so that's what the transition from radio into podcasting was so smooth, because that's what our focus was for, I won't say 30 years, but
it was.
but that's what our focus was. So that's what makes podcasts so successful.
Right.
Because if you feel like you're a fly on the wall, then that means the podcast host is doing the right thing.
It should be one-on-one.
Yeah.
And you don't, some podcasts, when they start, new people, when they start, they'll address their audience and for my listeners. And most people are listening by themselves. Yeah. They're either in their car, have their phones on, have their buds in, whatever it might be. They're not listening in a group around a table.
And it drives me crazy on Instagram or on wherever, Facebook Live, and somebody like jumps on, hey guys, what's up? It's like, well, you're supposed to be talking to one person. So when somebody says, hey guys, it doesn't make, you don't have that personal connection with somebody. But if they say, hey, how are you? What's up? Thanks for joining me.
Just want to check in with you today. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's the little things. It's those little things.
Yeah, that's something small I never would have thought of, but that makes a lot of sense.
Now you're not going to hear an Instagram Live where they go, hi guys, without thinking of this.
Now I'm going to be like, wrong.
Yeah, you are wrong. You are wrong.
Don't do this.
Don't do that, yeah.
So you guys mentioned radio, obviously seasoned pros. How do we move from How do we move from radio into podcasting? What are kind of the differences? Like you mentioned a lot, but break it down.
Getting you to go in depth and not having a time limit on you is a big one. And that's a hard adjustment coming from especially morning radio, but any radio, honestly, because the breaks, you have to take 4 to 6 breaks an hour, depending on how you're formatted. And so you get to talk for 2 or 3 minutes, and you have that internal clock. When we first started our podcast, we were doing 10 minutes was hard.
Because we're so used to not letting content breathe and, letting there be dead air. You have to always have to fill it.
Yeah.
That was the hardest thing.
Yeah. And you're right, letting it breathe. That's the biggest thing, is that in a podcast, you can let the topic breathe. You can take it to its natural conclusion. You don't have to just boom, boom, boom and wrap it up. You can take the little side roads.
Yeah. Or on the other side of it, if it's a topic that it's maybe 10 minutes long, you don't have to fill space and extend it to 20 or 25 minutes because a sponsor said to, or whatever.
Yeah.
You can just let it die or let it be over.
Yeah. When it's went to its natural conclusion. It really is. I mean, that's, if we get done in 15 minutes, but we've covered all the bases,
we're done.
We're done.
Yeah. And also the on-demand aspect of a podcast, because in radio and TV, it'd be like, you listen tomorrow morning at 7:10 because we're going to give you blah, blah, blah. Or trying to get someone to stay in their car an extra 2 minutes to extend that listening, that time spent listening for your ratings. You don't have to do that anymore. Like, because people aren't going to miss a meeting because you're talking about something stupid.
They want to be able to hit pause. And I think they've gotten to that point. We've got that tipping point finally, because even some vehicles were coming out with radios that you could pause and you could rewind just a little bit after you'd been listening for a while. You could go back. But we've reached that tipping point of on-demand listening. Appointment listening is out the door. Yep. And I will hit pause, or I'm just going to miss the rest of it. Because if you aren't going to stick around, then I don't have time.
Right.
And
looking back on it now, it seems so arrogant being in that position that you think that whatever you're presenting is more important than what the person's doing, that they're going to change their whole schedule just to listen to what you have to say. But that was
the whole point of what we did.
That was the whole point. And look, it seems so ridiculous now.
It does. It was that you have to listen tonight at 5 to find out the number one food in your pantry that's killing you.
Yeah.
Tonight at 5, I'm going to be Googling that. Yeah. So I'm not.
I'll know by then.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll know by then. So there is no more of that. You bring the information that people are looking for. If somebody is seeking out your podcast, it's because they intentionally searched the type, style, or information that you're giving. And so it is intentional. It's not just a drive-by where they're just going down the dial and hope they hit something that sounds interesting. They're looking for you.
Yeah.
And then they listen intently. You aren't background noise. Yeah. With most of the time radio and music is. And now it's like they're really hanging on your words. So yeah, you've got their ear.
You've been selected.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
I know for me, like as a listener, like that was like I listened to you guys growing up.
Oh, boy.
in college.
Thanks.
No, I'm not growing up. I'm not that young. But that was the thing, yeah. I mean, I'd be like, well, I gotta go to class. Like, I guess I won't be catching the rest of this. Shoot, I'll never know.
Right.
Never know.
Right.
But then also, like now with podcasts, I know, like just devouring it. Like I can devour a whole season. I mean, like shutting it off is not an option. And so when I find something I'm super passionate about or super into, I can share it. And like I feel like with radio, that was a major change for me. I'd be like, oh, well, did you hear this morning? They're like, no. I'm like, I'm not going to do it justice by trying to tell you what
That's
happened.
a great point, though.
That's a great point.
Sharing it like has become like the major thing for me. I'm like shooting my mom episodes, shooting our coworkers episodes.
Yeah. And as a podcaster, relying on the people that like you already to share it is because it's an endorsement. But the person that shares you is like, hey, I like them, you'll like them too. So that's extremely valuable as a podcaster.
That's just crazy. I hadn't even really. I guess the sharing part of it with radio, you can't.
No,
you were either there or you weren't.
Yeah.
Well, and like so many stations, at least from when I remember, like were like of a certain genre, right? So you're like getting the same types of content where like I'm not going to visit like 80 different radio stations, but on podcasts, I'm grabbing stuff from true crime. I'm grabbing like journalism stories. I'm grabbing like economy and marketing and like all kinds of different things.
You weren't limited.
Off the shelf.
Because you were limited to, well, there's 12 stations. So we have 12 morning shows and 4 of them are this style. 4 of them are this style. You know, like 4 sports stations, you got 4 entertainment tonight style stations.
That is a great point.
And that's it. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to listen to it, well, good luck.
I mean, and TV's the same way. When was the last time you sat down at 7:00 every Thursday to watch a TV show? Or it's always on
right?
demand?
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
So
it's
always.
I don't think I've ever watched live like ever since.
Live?
My kids don't even know that that's a thing. Like they really don't. They don't know what Channel 7 is. They don't know what like sitting down and watching The Bachelorette every Tuesday.
Live.
Like
As it happens.
Mm-hmm. I've had that conversation before. They don't know what that is.
Isn't that crazy? I remember that time when things were starting to change, when it was like, wow, I haven't watched a live commercial. I haven't watched a commercial because they fast forward.
Yeah.
And then they started the DVRs at the time. DVRs wouldn't allow you to fast forward through commercials. Yes. And then you'd have any of the cloud services. They also started doing that as well. So then now you got the subscription platforms that allow you to completely avoid them. So that brings back another topic too, as far as podcasts and business. How do you get to these people who are ad avoiders?
I got to tell you, but for the people that advertise on our podcast, we do not fast forward through those ads.
No, we do not.
Just so you know.
And that is also a proven fact, though, across the board. The ads that are placed on podcasts, people listen to them because they trust the host. They chose that host. They chose that podcast. So they have an investment already.
Well, and because we have all those analytics, I mean, from the marketing side, we have the analytics behind who's the listeners, when they're listening, what types of other interests they have. And we can use that for our advertisers to say, hey, we think this is a good placement for you.
Right?
Like it's a match. Yeah. And it's going to feel really authentic. Whether it's like an ad that's placed within a podcast or it's the host endorsing a product. If it's really natural.
There are some that are still out there that they do the ad placement, where every once in a while you'll have an ad that does not fit their genre. And I remember one is a true crime type podcast that I listened to. It's 2 men. It's really good. And they were doing an ad for a bra. And I'm like, how much did you just get paid?
100%.
You don't use this.
Right.
And you don't even mention if your wife does. Yeah. So I do not believe that. But that side of it, placing ads, and then the other side of the branded podcast, trying to reach those ad avoiders with your podcast, with your information. Because if they're looking for information on how to build a shed, or you're a lumberyard and you want to have the best products, or you're a doctor and you specialize in this, when people are searching for that information, they want that right now, not all the other crap.
Well, that just kind of tags on to what our first episode was about with Dan and Max. We were just talking about YouTube and video and how it's, even this podcast, we're being recorded, and it's going to be slice and dice for social, for YouTube, for other ways to consume this content, because maybe you are just looking for a quick answer.
Yeah.
What equipment do I need to start my podcast?
Right.
And it's like,
they don't want to watch a 30-minute episode.
You don't need to hear us talk for 30 minutes. Here's a list.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. And it used to be that they tried to force you to do that because consumption of the whole thing was what they were basing their success on.
Lies.
Lies.
Exactly.
It is. It was all lies. Yeah. Yes. So what are your favorite podcasts?
Oh my gosh, I have so many right now. I know, it's so bad. Okay, well, here's a fun fact. I listened, and not anymore, I can't say this, since I have my daughter, so I'm like 2 years behind. I listened to every episode of This American Life. I added it up. It's seriously like...
How many episodes is that?
Like 300 or 400 or something crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I was like at an hour a piece. This is like a year.
Right,
right. But I was like, where did my time go? Did I just go down a black hole? But it's while I'm in the car.
The good thing about podcasting is that's about the only medium that you can consume pretty much anywhere. While you're driving, while you're working out, you can't watch videos. You're not supposed to when you're driving. You can't really, I mean, you can while you're on the treadmill, but when you're out running outside, you can listen to podcasts all the time. But it's really almost anywhere, in class, sneaky, at work, So you didn't like check out of life. You're just listening to it while you're doing something else.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I've listened to a ton of This American Life. Otherwise, a lot of true crime podcasts, like anything that's new in your backyard right now. I just finished. I'm trying to think. I have like...
Isn't it funny when somebody asks and you're like, oh my God, there's so many and I can't remember one.
Right, you can't remember one.
I know, right?
Yeah, it is.
What about you guys? What are you listening to?
I love conspiracy theory podcasts. Ooh. And especially the goofy ones. I like the ones that are like, what? Come on, how did that get started?
That's how they get you hooked, though, because then you're like,
it is, because it's kind of
maybe.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of childish. Some of them like, there used to be giants on the earth. Wait, okay, now explain that one. And yeah, they do. It's awesome. I love true crime. Absolutely. And serial, any of those stories, and especially the ones that have turned into TV shows, which is just crazy, but they're great writers. writing and delivering their story.
Yeah.
What are you listening to, Pat?
Same. True crime. A couple sports ones. I love one called Slow Burn, which is really good.
Wait, what's that about? I feel like I've heard that.
It just takes like stories over the past 30 years and really goes in depth on them. I think the Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky thing was one of them. There's the payola, plugola of radio is one of them. So, and it's not just like it's not like an inside radio deal. It's just one of those that's produced very, very well. And it's 7 or 8 episodes released every week. And I can't wait till I see that notification. I like Dax Shepard's podcast too. And also Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum's a good one. So I like the longer form interview ones. I'm not like a quick, fast 25-minute one. I like if somebody has an hour and a half interview, because I can start it and stop it. It'll take me a week to listen to it. But
that goes right back to our point about podcasts being able to take things to its natural conclusion instead of trying to edit yourself to just hit the high points.
Yeah.
Because some of that other stuff is really fascinating. I bet you've learned things about the Clinton era that you didn't know about at the time because there wasn't time to tell us.
Yep. Yeah, and I didn't, and one was about Watergate. The slow burn had the Watergate scandal, and there were lots that I didn't know about that, and I learned about that in school. You know,
didn't know half of what actually happened.
Nope.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yes, it is. It's pretty cool, and it's getting bigger all the time. The audience has grown tremendously over the last. My gosh, we started a little over 3 years ago. Right at 3 years ago, I guess it was. But anyway, the leaps and bounds of how much it has grown and that people are so familiar with it now.
Yeah.
Well, I guess also because you can do it yourself. There's so many of these untold stories that because you didn't have a seat at like a radio studio, that now you can, if you have a microphone, you can tell your story or explain your expertise. It's just given even us more content to consume. So.
Exactly. If somebody's looking for you, you better be out there.
Right.
Right? So get it out there.
Put
your content together.
Awesome. Well, it's so exciting visiting with you guys.
You too. Thanks for having us in here.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.
I've Heard That is a part of the Hurrdat Media Network. For more information, follow Hurrdat on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram, or visit hurrdatmarketing.com.
A Hurrdat Media Production.